Good morning. So today's session we will discuss about AWS basics and S3 storage, EC2 compute service, RDS relational database service. So these are the three topics we will discuss now. So first one, AWS basics. Why AWS was? Because which is the most popular cloud computing service. The full form of AWS is Amazon Web Service. So which can be started in 1995 by Jeff Bezos from online bookstore. So Amazon Web Services has become a major provider in 2016. So most of the services from worldwide customers are using from AWS itself. The short form of Amazon Web Services is AWS. So it provides 200 plus services. So you can take on-demand services anywhere, anytime. So and it can be used pay-per-use model. And history of AWS. So it is started from 2003 to 2009. See that the graph that implements here. The release of first AWS version is on 2004, and the retail sellers they have to use these services from 2010 onwards. And there is a latest growth which can be largest and across 33% from the billion of the first quarter at 2019. So this is the growth rate of AWS. And some of the basic services of AWS. See the basic services of AWS. Normally Amazon Web Services categorize its services into 5 categories. The first one is compute service, second one is storage service, third one is database service, next one is network service, and the last one is security service. So these are all the 5 categories of AWS: storage service, compute service, network service, security service, database service. So these are all 5 categories. So these are all some of the basic AWS services. One is IAM, Identity Access Management, Elastic Compute Service, Simple Storage Service, DynamoDB and RDS. These two comes under databases, and Elastic Cache, Amazon VPC, Virtual Private Cloud, this comes under network service, Lambda, which comes under serverless service, Route 53, which is a domain name system, Kinesis for real-time processing. So like that many services are offering by AWS. So these are the some of services you can see. And the first service is Simple Storage Service, which short form we can call as S3. So basically S3 is a storage service. Simple S3 is a storage service. So simple storage means S3 you can save any type of data in any format. So every data item it can be treated as an object. So if you want to store any type of file like images, Word files, PDF files, so S3 can take it as an object. So if you want to save any file, so you have to keep that file as in terms of object under a bucket. So a bucket is like a folder. So where you have to keep all objects like files in your folder. So a file size of S3 you can store simply a 0 bytes to 5 TB. So this is the introduction to S3. So file stored in bucket which is like available in a folder in your local system. And S3 is having a unique name because of it is a global service. If you see here, there is a region name and bucket name, means that under which region your bucket is saving. So that is called as US West 1. That specifies in URL, this specifies S3 US West 1, and this is the bucket name where you are saving your file. So this is S3 introduction. So here in this we seen that S3 is a global service. It is having a unique name because of its global nature, and S3 can store any type of object in terms of objects under the bucket, and the minimum file size is 0 bytes and max you can store up to 5 TB. And advantages of S3. So the basic advantage of S3 is you have to create bucket because of it is having a unique name. So every user AWS treats as different, even though the buckets all belongs to your same account, the AWS treats it is from different, and you can store the data at infinite amount of, because there is no restriction, up to 5 TB you can save any amount of data, and you can download the data immediately because it is available in a cloud. you can download at any time, any moment, any location if you want, but the need is here you need to have an internet. And other feature of S3 is permissions, because your personal data or any data relating to your industry or organization, you can keep that in an S3 file, and you have to set the permissions for your data under S3. So you can grant the permission to others or you can deny also. So this is the best feature offered by the AWS if you are using S3 storage. And see that advantages of S3, you have to first create a bucket. So there is a procedure how to create a bucket. You can see with your AWS free trial account, then you can see there creating a bucket procedure. So once you create a bucket, that will give a unique name because that bucket belongs to you. And second one is storing data into your buckets. So once you create a bucket, you have to store your data into the bucket. So after that, you can download the data at any moment of time. And you can set the permissions, and you have to set the standard interfaces, like one bucket can be communicated with other bucket. And the next feature is security, because you can provide your own security. It can be allowed from the AWS side, it can be provided on server side encryption, and it also allows the end user to provide their own security principles also. So these are the advantages of S3. And what is the components in S3? So the major components in simple storage service are bucket, object, keys, regions, consistency. So these are all the important concepts. So just now we seen that a bucket is a folder. If you want to keep any data in the S3, first you need to create a bucket. It is like a folder, and there is no restriction to the type of a file. You can save any type of object into that bucket. That may be either CSV file, HTML file, image file, Word file, PDF file, or some music data, any type of file. It can be treated as an object. And keys we can call as access keys, means that who is accessing your file. So you can provide a restriction for accessing that. Suppose the keys may be enabled as publicly available, or it can be prohibited from public. That may be either private, like public or private. Your file can be accessed either in the ways either public or private. And most of the regions are there. So region specifies where your S3 bucket should be located. As an AWS global infrastructure can be divided into many ways, like initially it was divided into regions. Again, the region is a global space which can be divided into zones. Under the zones we have like edge locations. So a global space is divided into regions. So this region specifies in which region your S3 bucket physically stored. So that is the concept of S3. So bucket, object, keys, regions, and data consistency models. So this consistency specifies like access, whether publicly available or privately available. And this is a bucket, like every bucket you can create in your account by means of giving the bucket name, and it should specify the region. So these are the two constraints. When you see the default settings of the bucket, you have to provide a bucket name, and the second one is you have to select the region where the bucket must be saved, and the third one is you have to give a default setting, like defaultly all S3 concept will be in the blocked mode. Because of more secure AWS offers, your bucket is in private mode, and objects in that bucket also in private mode. So here there are different combinations. If bucket is in public, object is in private, you cannot share the object. If both are in public, then only you can share the object. So there are different combinations you can see by exploring various concepts from the S3. So in a free tier account, you can create 100 buckets from each account. So there is no restriction how many objects you are saving there, but the restriction here is up to 5 TB you can save your data. So that is a restriction, but in your free tier account you can create 100 buckets. And object, so object is like a key and value store that is designated, which can be stored in buckets. So object size, there is no restriction, like you can save any type of object with any size. And the region that specifies under which region the object must be saved. And you have to choose a region. You have to optimize the latency and minimum cost, and you can be very exclusively concentrate on how long you are using your data. From that, without any latency, you can retrieve your data. And S3 is a simple key value store. So means that it is an object based storage. It is having a key, like for example, every object is having a name. So the name implies here hello.txt means this is a text file, and spreadsheet.xl, this is an Excel file. So like that, every object is having the key. And value, so what is here? S3 is a simple key value store. So value means whether it can be made of sequence of bytes in a file. And a version that specifies ID of an object means that what is a version ID of an object. And metadata, data about the data, so which can be stored under name and value pair. And sub resources, which is a mechanism to store a specific information. So finally you have to go for access control information. You can put the permission individually or to your group of files. This is about S3. See that S3 many storage options are there. You have S3 simple storage like Glacier, expedited Glacier, one zone IA and default IA. So S3 is an object storage where key and value has been stored. If the data cannot be used for 1 year, then obviously the data will be moved to Glacier. So if the Glacier object is not suitable for immediate retrieval of your data, then you can go for expedited retrieval. And this Glacier and expedited Glacier, which simply we can say as it is a cold storage. And if you want to use frequently the data, so you have to keep your data in standard S3, because standard S3 it can be provide immediately retrievable data. There is no lag or there is no time to be taken. So whenever you are asking, it will give immediately. That is S3 standard. And there is one zone IA. So defaultly S3, the best feature is it is replicated your data in 3 different locations. So once it is replicated 3 different places means you can get easily the data if one copy is not available in any one zone. So that simply you can use this S3 for backup purpose also. And the second one is EC2. So in this session, the first one is storage services, which is an example like S3. And the second one is EC2 instances. The full form of EC2 is Elastic Compute Cloud. So this is the general compute service offered by an AWS. So there are different types of instances. So if you want to perform any computation, so EC2 can be helpful from the AWS because it is a computing environment. So different types of instances from the EC2. You can take general purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized and accelerated computing, and finally storage optimized. So general purpose is the most popular one where you can use for most web servers and deployment environment, and which is a good for like normal workloads. And there is a compute optimized, which is a good for compute intensive workload, like it cannot be concentrate on any storage, so which can be most suitable for scientific as well as high performance web servers. And other one is memory optimized, so it can be like just for storing and analyzing your data. It cannot be mostly for the purpose of computing the data, so it can be most suitable for workloads called as big data analytics like Hadoop and Spark workloads to be run. And accelerated computing, which provides massive data for parallel processing like graphic processing. You can select an option from an EC2 instance called as accelerated. And finally the storage optimized, which is ideal for to storing huge amount of data like sequential reads, writes and log processing. And so the Amazon EC2, which the main capability is you have to rent the virtual machines from an EC2 and storing data on the virtual drives called as EBS and distributing the load across multiple machines, which by using elastic load balancer, and scaling the services using auto scaling group. So these 4 are main components in EC2. One is why we are using EC2. EC2 for getting a virtual machine through a rent. And second one, if you are performing any computations over a machine, then you can make use of elastic block store, which is BS. So this is a hard drive like storage which can be mounted to your instance whenever you are launching your virtual machine. So like if you are launching your Windows machine, the default storage given by AWS is 30 GB for EBS. If you are launching a Linux virtual machine, the default storage is 8 GB. And load balancing, so which is called as elastic load balancer, because like your multiple sites are running over a cloud at different locations. If one site got halted due to heavy load there, the load balancer can distribute equally the load with the different regions as well as different sites which can be available there. And auto scaling. So this elastic load balancer does not need auto scaling, but auto scaling definitely need the load balancer, because if you want to scale the number of instances, which can be done automatically by the load balancer health checks. So these are all the main components of Amazon EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud. And what is the configuration and sizing of an EC2? So EC2, the configuration choice that depends upon how much computing power like CPU you are using and how much memory you are using. So these are all the configuration options. Like an operating system is whether you have to take Linux, Windows or Mac OS. And the storage system you can take either EBS, EFS or instant store. The difference between EBS and EFS store. Elastic block storage, it is a network hard drive like storage defaultly attached to your virtual machine, which cannot be shareable between the instances. But elastic file system, the name implies it is the shareable file over a network. Many instances can run on a common file which can be shared over a network, so that is called as EFS. Then come to the hardware, which can be called as EC2 instant store, which will be very helpful for performing a greatest IO operations and firewall rules. Security group is there which can protect your virtual machine, so it can be provide security at the virtual machine level. And the other feature called as user data. So this is an area where you can script your data, like you want to perform any calculations or if you want to launch any websites, you can script the data by using user data space offered by an AWS. So these are the main configuration options. The first one is you have to choose an operating system. Second one is you have to choose the type of CPU, like general purpose, compute power or memory optimized one. And the second one is how much storage space you require and the type of storage you need to specify, and the security group which can protect your security for your virtual machine. And finally the user data, you can script by using that. So by using user data you can perform the different tasks, like it can be used for installing updates or installing software and downloading common files from an internet. So the user data script which runs based upon the root user credentials. And these are the different instance types. So where you can see that instance types, M which we can call as memory optimized, G you can call as general purpose, C you can call as compute optimized. So in this example M5.2 X large means X means extra large, M means memory optimized. So this is an instance type you can be choose. So previously you seen here there are different instances like memory optimized, compute optimized, general purpose, accelerated, storage. So all you can see by using the type of storage or the type of power computing you are taken from M5, you can define like this. So this is the choice where instance types can be taken, where M is an instance class. So these are all called as instance classes, and 5 is the generation where AWS improves over a time, 6th generation, 7th generation. 2x large means the size of the instance class, extra large, 2% greater than that of the normal. Large here means the computing power you are defining for that. And EC2 instance types that can be balanced. So if you want to balance the different types like compute, memory and networking, because your workload may not be purely concentrate on compute or may not be on memory or may not be on networking, then the best choice you can opt for is general purpose. And compute optimized. So if you want to take only the workloads purely based upon performing the computations, so then you can go for compute optimized workloads, where it takes batch processing workloads, media workloads, high performance computing, scientific modeling and machine learning. So these are all the different types of compute optimized workload examples. And you can take the instance type one example as memory optimized. So memory optimized means which can perform faster operations on the workload that requires greater data sets in memories. So like if you want to perform a high performance operations like relational, non-relational databases on distributed web scales or cache storage and Power BI business intelligences, where you can take real-time processing of big and unstructured data also, because the memory name implies this is large data sets can be processed. So maybe for high performance either relational, non-relational as well as business logics you can implement. And EC2 instance type of storage. Here storage means you can just take for storage, it is not for any processing and all, so just like read and write operation you can perform. So examples here is either high frequency OLTP transaction like online transaction processing systems, NoSQL databases, cache for in-memory databases and data warehouse applications, as well as distributed file systems. You can take this storage optimized. You can see here there is no operations can be carried out over a data, which can just like storing the data for read and write purpose. So this is storage optimized. And so this is a very important one. How to purchase an instances? There is different types of instances are there. On-demand instances, reserved instances, saving plans, spot instances, dedicated host, dedicated instance, capacity reservations. So when you are preferring for the on-demand instances, because EC2 is not a free one offered by AWS, you need to go with purchasing options. So what is on-demand workload when you are preferring? When a user is having a short workload to be run, short workload means maybe either 1 hour, 2 hour or 5 hour. So you can prefer for on-demand instances. Then for 1 hour workload, you have to predict your pricing and you have to pay by second. How long you are using? For 1 hour you are using that, like you have to pay for based upon the second. And reserved instances. So these reserved instances you can reserve priorly for 1 year to 3 years. The minimum period is 1 year, the max period is 3 years. Means that you have to reserve all the resources between 1 and 3 years. It can be suitable for long workloads, not for short workloads. So this is the reserved. And one more variation in reserved instances, which is called as convertible reserved instances. So in convertible reserved instances, suppose say if you are reserving the period of 3 years, but you are not using the 3 years, you will be wind up for only 2 years. It is not possible in a reserved instance, but it is possible in convertible reserved instance. So if you are reserving for 3 years, if you not use that 3 years and you can be wind up for 2 years, it is possible in convertible reserved. And there is a saving plan. Saving plan is same as reserved, but the minimum here is 1 to 3, but saving plan is also minimum duration 1 and max is 3, but you have to commit it over long duration of workload and you have to use that period of workload without any deviations. So then only saving plans will you get more benefitable and more discounts also will be in saving plan. Then come to the next one, spot instances. Spot means which is very cheapest one, we can call as unreliable one, which is also based upon the bidding. Spot instances are very cheap because of it can lose the instances. And dedicated host means it can book entire physical server. Dedicatedly it can serve entire physical server. No one can be shared with your dedicated servers. And dedicated instances, no other customers will share your hardware. Means that virtual machine that is given to you, it is owned to you until you can access that. And the last one is capacity reservation. So reserve capacity in specific availability zone for any duration. So this is the EC2 instance purchasing options. And the next one is VPC. So in this session we are discussing about S3 EC2 VPC. So VPC is called as virtual private cloud. So the name implies, so if you are creating any virtual machines, defaultly in your free tier account, it is under public VPC. But virtual private cloud that creates you a own cloud space because it is completely dedicated to you. So by using that VPC, you can create your own virtual network. Suppose see here, this is a VPC network dedicated to your user account, your enterprise. This entire space is given to you. This is logically confined to you only. No other virtual networks will be allowed here. And you can launch any AWS resources in this virtual network like EC2, S3, or you can use any type of service in your area. So the main components in VPC are subnets. So subnet we can call as entire VPC. See here, this is entire VPC is in a cloud which can be divided into subnets. Like how we are constructing our building, VPC also constructed like that. Entire space is divided into rooms like so. Here also entire cloud space that been assigned to you has been divided into some partitions which is called as subnets. So this is the subnet concept. And routing table, the other component in VPC is routing table. That routing table specifies a set of rules how the traffic has been directed from one subnet to other subnet based upon the routing table. So that entirely controls the routing information for a subnet. So if one subnet can be associated with only one routing table at a time, and multiple subnets can also be associated with same routing table. So this is the logic here, because any subnet can communicate with any other subnet also. And there is an internet gateway. So internet gateway is redundant, horizontally scalable, because as we've seen here, instance level security is provided by security group, and subnet level security can be provided by this internet gateway. So this internet gateway allows how public traffic can be allowed to your VPC, like between the subnets. So this internet gateway allows the internet connectivity to your VPC environment, because VPC is private. But if you want to connect private to the public, you need internet gateway. And again, the VPC subnets are divided into two parts. One is public subnet and other one is private subnet. So if internet traffic should want to reach the private subnet, first it should go with the public subnet. So then only it can move to the private subnet. So with that, we need a translator called as network address translator. So the network address translator function is which carries the traffic in and out from public subnet to the private subnet. So this is NAT function and internet gateway. And VPC, you can see different dedicated for your AWS account. It cannot be shareable between number of accounts. And this is in VPC architecture, where you can see here, this is an internet gateway, this is virtual private gateway, this is a router, and many network ACLs are there which can control your instances at the security level. So these are all the different instances running your own space. This is an architecture of VPC. So where network ACL and routing table that carries the traffic between different public subnets or private subnets. See here, this is a public subnet, this is private subnet. And there is a router which can carry the traffic from gateway. Other VPC also can be connected here. So if two VPCs wants to connect each other, that we can say as VPC peering. So if any VPC can distribute a traffic towards the public, so it definitely needs an internet gateway. So this is an architecture of VPC. And RDS. See that RDS, relational database service. So this is a managed service, means that automatic provisioning and OS patching. So till now we've seen about VPC. The next concept is relational database service. So not only storage, network and compute service offers, various database services is also offered by an AWS. Here, if you want to create a relational database, you need to customize the relational database directly. You have a provision to click on RDS from your free tier account, then you can use that. Other way, if you want to manage your own database, then you can launch via EC2. So if you are launching via EC2, then automatic patching, OS, everything is responsible by you only. And it can also provide some monitoring dashboards for continuous backups, and it can set up a multiple availability zones, and you can save all the maintenance window upgrades for the scalability. So RDS that defines relational database, where you can have different versions in an RDS, which is called as MySQL, Aurora, Server, PostgreSQL, Maria, Oracle, DB engines. So these are all various versions in Amazon RDS databases. Among these, the powerful one is Amazon Aurora because it is a serverless relational database service. So you can launch an RDS in two ways, by using EC2 or by using managed RDS. So if you are using managed RDS, you have to define CPU, memory and performance. And if you have been using an instant storage, that can be used for either provision or general purpose IOPS. And what are the challenges in the relational databases? Most of the challenges you can see that if you are using your own database, or if you are customizing or creating your own database by EC2, you have to go with server maintenance, software installations, backups and many things like operating system patches and all. At the same, you want to use or managed RDS by AWS, you need not worry about that. If you want to customize your own settings, then launch an RDS by using EC2, otherwise use managed RDS. And there is storage option and how much you have been paid for this RDS. And there is provision and additional storage. For the provision, there is no charge, so you have to take a backup of 100% of database to be active. And additional storage you have to take for, depends upon number of GBs you have been used for that. So that's all about this session, where we discussed about first we seen about AWS basics, S3, EC2 and RDS. Thank you.